Make me like a liar. Here we are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Nightmare on Fear Street.
Yes, today we're covering the classic original Friday the 13th.
Originally classic.
Originally classic, classically original, you know? We're not doing Friday the 13th part 38.
How many are there? How many are there? I haven't counted them.
I refuse to count that high for free. I'm
I
sorry.
want to say there's close to 12 or 13 if you count
That
Jason
sounds right.
X and Freddy versus Jason.
Uh-huh.
Because I own
yeah,
the
because you do
first
have
8
to.
films.
Yeah, you have to count the cross.
Yeah.
I think you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we're celebrating a holiday, Sharai, right?
Right? It's Friday the 13th. And so we're going to talk about Friday the 13th with Nightmare on Fierce. Nightmare on Fifth. The alliteration, I had it. I practiced it. And then I was like one sip of a beer and I can't speak anymore.
Our neighbors from a block over, you know?
Right? Just listen to both. And that way you don't have to worry about if I'm right or not. Just
There
listen
you
to
go.
both. Subscribe to both right now.
All right. Well, welcome, Alma and Dahlia.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna get to know you guys a little briefly. But first, we want to talk about Fifth Street. Sorry, I can't talk today for some reason. So, but
hard.
It sounds like y'all got started early on the drinks.
I mean, just this morning. It's
been
fine.
a day. Woo!
It's been a good day for me.
Thank God it's Friday. So tell the listeners a little bit about like what your podcast is about. What do you guys do on your podcast?
Okay, that looks Alma folding her hands down and looking at the camera means I need to be talking. Okay, so Nightmare on Fifth Street is Alma and I just wanting to talk about horror movies. So it started out very basic like that. We grew up watching scary movies, and looking back, it's like we pretty much almost always watched horror. I'm trying an occasional comedy here and there, but it was just like almost horror. I don't know how we got away with it, but I guess because we're Gen X, we're older than you guys. I think it's because a lot of our parents just didn't give a shit as long as we were out of their hair. Yeah, as long as we were out of their hair. But we always gravitated towards horror movies, and we found that horror has just always been like a comfort thing to us. So we don't live in the same city anymore, and we haven't for a very long time because both of us joined the military straight out of high school. But whenever we get together, it's always like, okay, what horror movie are we going to watch? It's always been that way. Of course, with last year, with everything going on in this world, Alma and I just wanted to feel a little bit more connected, and since we were already watching these scary movies and we decided, hey, well, we didn't decide. I went to her and I asked. I'm like, please,
That was a good idea.
Yeah, do this thing with me. I want to do a podcast. Just hear me out. That's what I always say when I have an idea. Just hear me out. And I sold it to her because I was really surprised too. And she always says, what was it that you said, Alma? If I had asked you for something else?
If it was any other one, I would have said no. If it was any other type of podcast, I would have said no. But it's something that we're doing already.
Right.
Yeah, we were already talking about every week. We talk about what we do.
The movies, Yep.
And so
it's like we get a movie recommendation. Who doesn't? Friends are doing it, family do it all the time already, and then I was just like, okay, that's good. That's a good idea.
And since then it's grown, it's evolved a little bit. I mean, obviously we're very new still. I mean, we just started this past January, but we've a lot of what came of it is like I said before. It's like it's always been like a coping thing for us to use horror, to get through a day. It's like let me put on a comfort movie. Okay, which slasher flick can I watch? Some like Freddy or whoever just tear someone apart so I can. It's like a catharsis for me sitting there. But we started noticing that even though we are big fans of horror, we're just not seeing our faces as much on there. We're not seeing Latinos, we're not seeing brown people, we're not seeing a lot of people of color, and so even though we enjoy horror, we're still gonna love it. We are trying more to look and seek out those horror movies that aren't necessarily always being talked about. Are we still going to talk about Friday the 13th? Hell yeah. But, we are going to talk about movies like Ojuju, which we spoke about this past week, and that's a Nigerian zombie flick. So it's the best of both worlds, finding new horror and then enjoying the classics like this.
Right. Yeah.
I've loved your list. I've been stealing things. I'm like, I need to see this. I need to see that. I need to see that. I might want to cover this because like Nigerian zombies, yes. And so I love that we've all found each other because like there's like a group of horror podcasters of color who are just like, I love everything you're doing and here's what I'm doing. You want to be a part of this. And so it's this cool little community. And you get to like grow your list because it's hard sometimes finding people who look like you in this genre, and people keep telling you it's doing better. And I'm like, where at? And so it's nice to compare notes. I live like you did an episode featuring BIPOC femmes a few weeks ago, and I was like, I don't know most of these names. Why don't I know most of these names? And so I was like taking notes, Fast and Furious 9 style. Yeah.
And you can
awesome.
love horror movies like totally, and you can still give your criticisms where you need it or what needs improvement. That's totally what it's there for, because we're watching it, we consume it. So why not share our opinions about what we want to see more of whenever we can, Yeah.
There's no such thing as a perfect film. No such thing. But yeah, Sharai and I actually have a very similar origin story where we're just like zooming, drinking, talking about horror films. We're like, why don't we record this and put it on the internet and see what happens? And here we are. Awesome. But so we're going to get to know each of you individually now. So we're going to start with Alma.
Okay.
We started with this one with this question with everyone. What is your favorite scary movie?
I go back to Nightmare on Elm Street is my absolute favorite. Freddy, I had like this. I just had like this love-hate relationship with him as a kid. I don't know how. He scared the shit out of me, and at the same time, I loved him, wanted to watch him, and his sense of humor really got me. I don't know how, and I look back at it like, why was I watching that and like being, I gotta watch Freddy. And Freddy hosted that television show late at night, up for, and he wasn't like necessarily in the show. What I remember was like he was kind of like a host that would come out right before the commercial time and be like, "Watch out, I'm coming for you," and just the wit. And I love Nancy. She was my favorite final girl, my first favorite final girl. I just loved her. I thought she was gorgeous. I loved her hair. I loved everything about it. And also because she like won, like she found a way to conquer Freddy. And so I loved it. I loved it. And I don't think I've ever gotten enough of that particular movie. I just wouldn't get tired of it. I love it. Like Home Alone thing that she's doing, setting up booby traps all over the place.
Macaulay Culkin eat your heart out.
Yes, I tell people that was the inspiration for Home Alone, and like my kids or whatever, they believe me, and I love saying that that was the inspiration for Home Alone.
That's great. So are slashers your favorite subgenre, or do you have other favorites?
I would definitely say it's slashers big time. I was listening to a Clubhouse today where they were talking about slashers. They brought up Hatchet series. Was like a complete surprise. I loved it. I love all those kills. Jason, it's just like where the body counts are high, and you really just don't. It's just fun. It's fun. It's like, how are they going to kill him, and how much blood's going to splash around? Yeah, that's definitely.
Love it. So, do you, other than watching Nightmare on Elm Street, do you have like a horror origin story for yourself, like growing up watching it? Do you have like a story that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, we do. I don't know if it's going to be the same, but the thing is, because we grew up together, right. And Dahlia and I. But for me, I always remember Return of the Living Dead being the first horror movie that I ever watched. Being way too little, but that zombie movies were like the most scared I was at. For some reason, I didn't believe in a lot of stuff. Like I was like, the ghost snap, but the thought that we could come back reanimated and start eating each other, that was always something that I thought was possible. I'm like, no, man, chemical agents, what about the water, gas in the face? There could be a virus. Like, I always thought that could be real. Return of the Living Dead, we went back to it over and over. And even though I'd be like, oh gosh, like totally scared, that one was fun. It was fun, and it got better. Like, as we watched it, as I got older, I got less scared, and it just became something comfort movie that it's like, oh, I'm putting on Return of the Living Dead, So it's great.
Love it. I love a good zombie flick. So switching over now to Dahlia, what is your favorite scary movie?
Okay, the highly controversial, and I'll show you how much of a favorite movie it is of mine. The Devil's Rejects.
Oh.
I love it.
Rob Zombie.
I love him. I love this movie. Yes, it's fucked up. I will admit that, but there's something about that fucked up. Like I said, it's, oh my gosh, you hear my dog. He just came inside. Oh my Lord. You're going to have to wait. Anyways, I talk to them like my children. Do you hear her? Do you hear her?
We love her. We love her.
So yeah, but yeah, there's something about it that I'm rooting for them, as horrible as that sounds. And at the end, every single time I cry at the end of that movie. And I know it's fucked up. But there's something about it that just draws me in every time. It may be more because I really love Sherry Moon Zombie. I love her. And I love their little vegan farm and how they rescue all the animals. So there's something about it. I said they're endearing. That family is endearing to me. So, but yeah, that's my favorite movie.
So do you have a favorite subgenre? Is it slashers or is it something else?
Ghosts. I love, because there are not very many good ghost movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of ghost stories out there, but a good one, yeah, they're usually not that great. So I'm always on the lookout for a really good ghost movie. I'm trying to think of the last really good one I've seen. I mean, there's good ones, but ones that really scare me, that's like rare. I think the last time I saw one, and it ended up not really being a ghost one, it was more demon, was Paranormal Activity. I saw it in the theater, and watching it in the theater, in a packed theater with friends, I think really made that movie for me. I remember bringing my knees up to my chest and I was like, oh my God, here it comes. What's going on? But I think a lot of that too was that experience with other people around me. So something we may not be able to experience again for a very long time, but I really loved that experience with everybody.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so since you said ghosts, do you make a distinction between demonic possession films and ghost films? Are those different for you, or are they the same?
They are different. They are different for me. But like this one, it started off kind of like a ghost. That's why, it started off as a ghost. We find, we end up learning more that it's a demon and all that. But I mean, if it's a really good demon story that kind of is like that, where it's kind of portrayed as ghost like that, rather than just coming right out, and not saying that there's anything wrong with Night of the Demons. That's great too. But if it's kind of like that, then I'm all in.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Do you have a different origin story you want to share, or is yours the same as Alma's?
It's that one, and it's because, like she said, we were way too young to be watching it, and because that movie actually imprinted on my psyche so much throughout growing up that I swore I could hear the living dead. We lived right next to an alley, like moaning down in the other end of the alley, coming towards the house. And so obviously that wasn't happening, but that's how terrified I was of it, that I thought I could hear those moans coming and I'd be like, everybody would fall asleep, and I'd be like, I gotta stay awake in case I have to wake everybody up. I'm an idiot. But
everyone wake up and get out. Awesome. Well, okay, so let all the listeners and viewers know where they can find your podcast on podcast programs, on social media, and then also plug your own social media if you would, wherever you want them to follow you.
That Dolly usually has me do them. You can go to our website, nightmaremoviepodcast.com. Our Instagram is at Nightmare Movie Podcast. Our Twitter is Nightmare on 5TH. And you can email us at nightmaremoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Awesome. Yes, go and give them a follow and then subscribe. I'm sure they're on all the platforms, Apple, Spotify. I don't even know them.
Oh,
There's so
Dahlia
many.
has this. We have Dahlia shared something about our podcast listeners. 22%, right, of our listeners.
Oh my God! Yes, from India.
Are from India. Isn't that just like that's like so cool? I'm like,
yeah.
whoa.
So yeah, we have
We're
quite a
kinda
bit.
huge there.
That's
No
awesome.
big deal in India.
You need to go on the road, okay? Take this act on the road. Across the pond. That's awesome, though. Congrats. All right. Oh, shall we?
There were some kitties. I saw them because I'm worried about Louise always. So I'm watching everybody else too. Because Louise will ruin the show. She's waiting for her chance.
Oh, really?
It's all about Louise.
I have two right here, but you can't see this one because I have he's oh my gosh, because I never know what, because he's a black fluffy kitty. So he matches the throw on the bed, and the light shows him pretty good right now, but the blanket is black and gray, and I sometimes can't find him, and then he's like right there.
I love it. He's incognito.
Louise, right?
You just see eyes.
Louise is a tuxedo kitty that's supposed to be a Virgo, but that's a lie. I think she's a Gemini. Normally, I love Geminis, but we're button heads. I'm sure
mine are all over the place. I've got three cats, and one of them is just like a terror, and I love him. I love him the most. He's like biting me and scratching me all the time. I love you.
That's Louise's punishment when she gets on the counter. She's not supposed to get on because she doesn't roll across anything that we've cleaned. But I'm like, the counter is sacred. So when I catch her up there, I pick her up, and she looks like I've killed her. She's like, oh. And I'm like, I love you. You're pretty. She's like, no, my life is hard.
All right. Well, shall we get into some thoughts about the original Friday the 13th? Let's do it. Why don't Alma or Dahlia, whichever one of you would like to go first with a note or a thought or a question or whatever.
I had to rewatch this one because it's been a while since I last watched it. So I watched this one. I watched 2009 with Jared Padalecki, and because for some reason I thought it was a remake of the first one. I mean, I'd seen it, but I couldn't remember. And then I watched part 2, the second one today, because I wanted to make sure I understood everything that was going on. So that I just had to rewatch it, even though I remember a lot of it. It was good rewatching it and just like getting back into it. So I think tonight I'm just going to finish out a whole bunch of them after this.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yes,
they're wild.
I had not seen the first one since I was a kid, so I remembered Mrs. Voorhees clearly, and I remembered Kevin Bacon's death. But everything else was really murky, and I was like, "Oh, wait."
I always remember Kevin Bacon. Now I watched it with one of my kids, and she loves horror, and so she's watching it, and I'm like, yeah. And then I kind of casually brought up Kevin Bacon, and she just lost her mind. She was like, "What? Where? I didn't see him anywhere." And I'm like, "That's him right there." And I'm like, it's like completely babyface. She just wouldn't stop saying babyface Kevin Bacon. Oh my gosh, it's babyface Kevin Bacon. Oh my gosh, it's just like look at the shorts.
My note literally says babyface Kevin Bacon though.
Oh my god. Over and over. Just that his kill scene is one of my most memorable kill scenes of any horror movie. It's just it's like it just sticks with you. It was amazing looking. I hadn't seen it in a while. Watching it again, I loved it, and even it leaves like an impression even now because it's like, what the hell?
Right. It's one of the only kills that is really gory. Like only one in this film that you actually see the weapon enter. Well, no, you see it enter. You see it exit.
I was about to say that girl took an axe to the face, and you would remember her face.
But you don't see it though. It like cuts away, and then you see the body.
That's fair.
Yeah. And so that's the one. It's true. It's like pushing through the skin and everything. So it was like major, like, whoa, you know.
I want to know how they did that. I really want to know because like Kevin Bacon is still there and moving. Like maybe his body is like, I don't know. I want to know how they did that.
Yeah, maybe like two people. It's like two people or something. I've never looked that up. Now I feel dumb for not looking it up. I'm like, why haven't I looked that up? Because I think about it all the time.
I need someone with a Blu-ray to like give us the gospel. Like I know someone's out there with a Blu-ray.
I have the Blu-ray and I meant to watch a special features, but I haven't watched it yet.
You failed us, Trent. You failed us.
I will.
Prepared.
Listeners out there, I will post about this later.
Yeah, you only had 5 jobs today, Trent. Like, how dare you? That's the one that was most important.
But yeah, no, I actually made a note about how like this film, specifically in like the opening scene, and really the whole film, but that opening scene gives you a really good idea of how to make a slasher effective on a really low budget. Because like I said, you don't see a ton of actual like gore. You see blood and you see the Kevin Bacon death, but like the special effects are specifically chosen and super effective because they are not CGI and they are put where they need to be and not everywhere. The only special effect that didn't work for me, spoiler alert for everyone if you haven't watched this 1978 or whatever this film came out movie, 80, it was 1980. The only special effect that didn't work for me was the decapitation of Mrs. Voorhees.
That was real bad. That was real bad.
A little extra. Was it like? It was like that's a little. It was just like, okay, we get it.
They even showed the bone. All right, like that's I was watching that like, okay.
But there's no blood. There's the bone, but no blood. Like where was the blood?
Someone was like, I give. But this movie had the energy of a group of friends with a camera being like, let's just make a horror movie. We can't do worse than this shit we saw last night. And that's what it feels like the whole time. And like even Betsy Palmer was like, I don't want to do this piece of shit. And then she was like, I do want a new car though. And that's how we have this person, Mrs. Voorhees.
Use a car.
And now it's probably her most iconic role, let's be real.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that even like Mrs. Voorhees, who we all are like, this is iconic for, was like, this is a piece of shit. And I have a car, I can renegotiate it.
And they didn't expect it to be successful. Because they added that lake scene at the end after previews. Because they were like, shit, we have a success. And this could be a sequel and make us more money.
One of my notes is I think we need to own that Mrs. Voorhees being the killer is the reason this is iconic. Because like if you pick it apart, it's not like I need to watch this forever. This is one of my top 5. It's a horror movie. It's a slasher. I enjoy an 80s slasher. People getting stabbed in a cabin. That was the aesthetic back then. But like if not for Mrs. Voorhees, I probably would not revisit. And we probably wouldn't have this holiday that we're celebrating.
Yeah, and maybe that's why. I mean, this is kind of getting into my hot takes. I don't want to get too far into this, but like, maybe that's why the rest of the franchise, I'm like, I really like part 4, but I hate part 2, and I love part 6, but I hate part 7. And like, they're really hit or miss for me after this first one.
What salts my teens about the rest of the franchise is that we go from Mrs. Voorhees being the killer to her little boy who drowned being a grown man who's a mystical creature who can never die. And I need to rewatch the second one to see how that's explained. But I'm like, just give us more women killers. I'll follow you. I'm not here for the logic. Just give her a knife and let her go, and we'll make it work sometime in the future.
Yeah, it's like, where did they make the jump from that to that? I was because to my family, I was like, Mrs. Voorhees, she was a killer. Right. I was like rooted for the fact that she was a woman killer. I was like, why? That's awful. But at the same time, it's like, because it's like, how many women killers were there? And okay, like at points, I was going to piggyback on something Trent said earlier about Mrs. Voorhees and not wanting to do the movie and stuff, but it was like she was seriously doing like a dramatic interpretation of Miss Voorhees. Like if she had a script and they're like, here, do your own dramatic interpretation of this because it's like novella, like soap opera style.
Yeah. She was like, I'm a classically trained actress. I will not be fussing with whatever you all are doing in the woods. Cough, cough.
And now she is Mrs. Voorhees. Like, that's who she is. So to answer the question really quick from the listener, I need to rewatch Jason Goes to Hell. I only recently rewatched the first 8, which ends with Jason Takes Manhattan, which was a choice. So I need to go back and rewatch Jason Goes to Hell. So to answer your question, I don't know. Probably not. Jason X, though, is a lot of fun.
I just watched that one for the first time. That's the one where he's in space, right? Is that the one where he's in space? I watched it the first time with Jazz from Girl That's Scary on Clubhouse because we were looking for something.
Wild ride.
It was a lot.
All the like aliens feeling and the references was like they're like little Easter eggs in the whole thing. I thought it was fun, but it's like an addiction. You have to like the Pokemon, you gotta grab them all. It's a Jason movie. I gotta watch it, you know. And right. Freddy versus Jason, I remember went to the theater, and I was like, I had to go see it, and they were like, I couldn't find anybody, and I heard a neighbor talking about it. I didn't even know her. And I was like, you're interested in that? I want to go too because I don't want to go by myself. And we had a great time. But I just had to watch them all. It's just something like, even if you know it's going to be bad or even whatever, it's still fun. You know, I think most of them ended up being pretty fun.
Right. No, Jason X, yeah, I agree. I would love to see the Muppets do Jason X. The 2 scenes I remember from Jason X is the scene where he like freezes her face in like that liquid and then busts it open, and the scene where they redo the tent scene where he has the 2 women in the tent and he's just like slinging them around the tree. Those are the only 2 things I remember from that movie. But I agree, Mrs. Voorhees is better than Jason. Hot take, maybe.
She's the reason for the season. She literally, one of the few things I remembered about this movie was Mrs. Voorhees, and I think it's what everybody remembers, which is why they're like, it's great, it's iconic. And what they're really getting at is we need more femme slashers, but I want to say that.
Yeah.
I actually am working on something. So I love doing that to Alma. I love doing that to her.
She's like, we're gonna join Trent and Sharai on.
Would you stop telling people that? Would you stop?
She didn't tell me.
Surprise.
Surprise.
Appreciate when she does all the like behind the scenes work first before
I don't want to stress her out. I don't want to stress her out. So I like take care of things.
Yeah, then, I'm like, I can handle like one thing a day. That's it. It's just like whoa.
Every podcast has their system.
I want to be a lady of leisure. That's my new system.
That's my dream.
So, one of my thoughts about this film, because I'm curious to hear what you guys think. One of my favorite movies, and Sharai, you already know this, and if the other 2 probably know this as well, but one of my favorite movies of all time is Scream. And you can really see where the Wes Craven could have taken watching Friday the 13th and the scenes with Alice from the beginning. Because I don't know about you, but the first time I watched this, I expected Alice to be the protagonist. Because you've already seen the first 2 kids get killed, and then you meet this girl wandering in the woods, and you're like, oh, this has got to be the one I'm following now, right? Nope, she's dead within the first like 10 minutes. Didn't even make it to camp.
You're just doing hot takes early tonight. Continue.
That's not my hot take.
That feels like a hot take. Continue though.
But no, I could see where that was like kind of evolved into the Drew Barrymore scene from Scream. Granted, it's a different set of dynamics because you don't have Drew Barrymore in Friday the 13th. No shade to the girl that played Alice, but like, so yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting kind of thing that I noticed that this film did 20 years before, or 15 years before Scream was a thing.
I felt more like Alice was there for exposition because she introduced herself to the town to be like, oh, you mean Camp Blood. She was just kind of there to get that backstory that might have been missed. Like if somebody said they added her parts in after they filmed, and we're like, oh, we had questions. That would make sense to me. Because also everybody else showed up in like a group, and she was left to hitchhike, and that feels weird.
Yeah.
So I never got like she was like the setup for a fake final girl at all. I was like, she's about to catch a knife at some point anytime soon. Even as a kid, I was like, when did she die? She's first? She's first.
Yeah, it was weird that the other, like, because you had Alice and the main dude, the like owner dude, and then like two other people that seemed like one group, and then you had the Kevin Bacon group, and then you had little Alice that was kind of like, hey guys, I'm trying to get there. Hopefully I'll get there at some point.
I thought it was funny the way that she was hitchhiking there. I'm like, how did she even get that job? Like on an application, it's always like, do you have reliable transportation? Did she check like, yes, I'm hitching? You know, like
she's a liar.
I get no job with like.
Well, I liked that for her character because at that time, that's what people did. They were hitchhiking all the time, and they were going across the country doing, these odd jobs here and there. So for me, it very well could have been like Sharai said, for exposition. We need to develop this, what's going on, but also. For me, it rang true because if just doing any kind of like reading or just going back to that, 70s, early 80s, that's how people, did jobs. And you're right, Alma. How did they hear about these jobs? I don't know. I don't fucking know, but they heard about them because they would literally like move, like, from California, go across to the East Coast and do jobs along the way. So for me, that's the reason it rang true that, okay, she's coming from somewhere else. She's probably hopping around doing jobs like, here and there. And that was her character. And I loved her character. She's adorable as fuck. And it sucks when she dies because she was really sweet and everything. But maybe she wasn't there for that.
Yeah, I like Trent said, I didn't expect her to die. I didn't expect her to die because everybody, especially with the older ones and the tropes, you got to look for what did they do wrong. Hitching wasn't doing something wrong during that time. So what did she do wrong? Talking to strangers wasn't a bad thing back then. Everybody talked to strangers. That's how you got from here to there. So I was just like, how dare they? How dare they kill her off?
And I'm going to vote for Alice as the best chase scene from this film. Specifically, that's just this film. There really wasn't another chase scene unless you count what's her face at the end. But that's just like, let me get to this room. I gotta go to this room.
Bobby Torres put it best on Twitter today, where he was like, she gave Mrs. Voorhees the business each stop, because each cabin she kicked Mrs. Voorhees' ass, and Mrs. Voorhees followed to the next one, and then they fight again. And so, like, that's a fight I appreciate. That's a fight I can put in some money on, because she was like, I'm not gonna do tonight. It's die.
She has the best fight, but I still say Alice has the best run. Because chase. She ain't trying to fight.
The chase falling over and over.
I don't like it. Part of the reason I wanted Alice to go ahead and get stabbed real quick is because she kept doing that I'm falling thing, like she's never run before. I hate in 80s, specifically 80s horror movies. They're just like, I've never used my legs before, and now that I'm being chased. And so they're just like falling and they're so weak and they're getting stabbed. And I'm like, get up. Whereas our girl at the end was like, I'm gonna run and I'm gonna do dumb things, but we're gonna fight about it if you find me. And so that chase had teeth. That chase was like, this is getting spicy. Is Mrs. Voorhees concussed? What? So yeah.
And I have a question for y'all about that, because I had a thought during that chase scene as well. In the like boat harbor when she like goes for the gun, I was like, I don't know that in my mind, I was trying to put myself in her shoes. I was like, I would have tried to look for something like an axe or a machete. I wouldn't go for the gun. Would you guys go for the gun?
But I think an object. Yeah. And did she get it loaded? That was the one thing that I misunderstood. Okay,
she couldn't find the bullets.
But you could still have used the gun as a weapon. I'm like, exactly like this. But I would have gone for a hard object to defend myself. Mrs. Voorhees didn't have a gun. So it was like, so you get a bigger, heavier, more blunt object and you could beat someone off. You know, I would. That's the first thing I think of. You know,
Okay.
I always had a bat.
Well, if I see a gun, I'm probably gonna go for the gun because close combat is scary as fuck, and that means you have to be up close before you can actually. So if I can get a gun and get myself away from the person, then I want to have that distance between me and my attacker. So that's what I'm thinking. If I saw a gun, I would grab the gun. I'd grab something, go back, you know, create some space and try to use the gun if I could. And if not, then I already have the other thing ready. But that's how, and also when you look at a gun and you look at, I don't know, a bat, between those two, I know the gun's going to do something if I can actually get the shot off, and the bat, maybe not. So,
But if she couldn't get it loaded and didn't know how to use it, then.
Yeah, I've never shot a gun in my life. So like, I'd probably shoot myself on accident.
I am anti-gun, but if a woman in a very cozy sweater is coming after me to stab my friends, I'll figure it out. Hi, Jamie. Break legs in your reading. Jamie's going to be playing Alice in Friday the 13th on Clubhouse in like 20 minutes. Oh, cool. So, yeah.
Don't hitchhike.
Make good choices. Just rewrite it.
But no, I'm going back to the hitchhiking thing. I do agree. Now that I think about it, because the late 70s, early 80s, that's when you hear about all the serial killers going around and like murdering hitchhikers everywhere. And that's before everyone, like, because shit, it took us 50 years to learn to lock our doors, much less not hitchhike.
Listen. I don't know what the 70s were other than people making interesting choices.
That's true. Thank you. Looking out for me. Just shoot myself. Whoops.
I just, while we're talking about decades past, another note that I had to clock was that the 80s horror movies were all about kids going to camp just to have sex. And I was very confused by that as a child. I'm like, could you not do that without the trees? Could you not do that in someone's home? Because there is a giant chunk of 80s horror where it's like they're out in the woods, they're getting naked and they're getting stabbed. And I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, is there no city?
I mean, I think that the whole idea is that you're away from your parents. There's no way, you don't have to report to anybody at the end of the day. You can sneak out of your cabin. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I was in middle school and junior high and even high school, less so in high school. So yeah, the older they get, the more confused I get about that. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard like, oh, at Bible camp, so-and-so and so-and-so, they was out in the lake.
That is the rest of this note, because up top we're like back when Jason was there, so 20 years before the 80s, so like 58, I think. And they're singing like their weird Jesus camp songs, and this couple's like wandering off. Like, what about the Jesus songs put you in the mood? Like, do you not?
That's weird.
I mean,
it's the Bible
always
camp.
In the mood.
Right. It was those Bible camp kids, the ones that were always, because they're the ones that were really repressed and had to, they had to wait for Bible camp to get that all out.
Right.
One of those Kumbaya chords just does it for this couple. And they're like, we gotta go upstairs right now.
Let's go, right? And I love that the other couples were like, we're just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't obvious what's happening.
They're like, we're here for this weird music. And I was like, have you ever talked to teenagers, writers? Because like most of the teenagers I have met in my lifetime were never just like, let's listen to this chill Jesus rock song real quick at camp. That's not what they got together for. They got together for chaos. It's much more Slumber Party Massacre than as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. I don't know about y'all, but I kind of want to play strip Monopoly now.
That's too long.
I hate Monopoly. I hate Monopoly. That's like Monopoly. It takes too long. It's just too long.
So does Risk, but people still play that.
I'm always like the party pooper who doesn't want to play Monopoly, but I do like to play it. It's just that I suck really bad at it, and then it's not fun if you're like the one who loses first every time.
She's a sore loser.
Well,
she's a big time sore loser.
A sore loser. It's just I don't understand how they always call me the sore loser. It's like it's not that. It's that how did I lose all the time? And they pick on me. They pick on me. The reverse Uno card on me all the time.
I feel like including the strip part of that makes losing Not necessarily a bad thing. And it makes it go quicker because you only have so many clothes you can pay for rent. What are you going to take?
I watched this the first time this week because I watched it a few times. I watched it the first time this week with Jamie. And when the Monopoly board came out, we were like, is there not a shorter game they could have stripped to? Like, was there no Uno? Was there no dominoes? Was there no checkers? Yeah. They're like, this 5-hour epic game is going to be sexy in 2 days when we're done and we're finally all naked. And I was like,
that dude was naked by the end of that scene. I was like, he's
a bad investor. He's a bad investor.
He lost.
A strategy.
Then the door blew open. It was the whole thing. But I was like, okay, I've never heard of strip Jenga. That could work.
That gets it done fast.
Well, but body parts will accidentally knock something over with that one.
True.
They were in their youth. They'll be fine. Gravity's not found them yet.
Yes. But anybody out there, if you ever want to play some strip Monopoly, just let me know. hit up my
you have 2 days. If you have 2 days to finish the game as well.
You need to like set this aside. You can't just like strip Monopoly. You have to be like on March 14th, the year 2025.
Trent is naked and has no more money. Like at that point, I'm bankrupt. I'm done. I can't buy anything else.
It feels like those couples who have to schedule sex. That's what it feels like it's for. It's like we do this on Thursdays, Bill.
I wonder if Monopoly like paid them like sponsorship fee, like what is it called? Product placement.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. And also Budweiser. Wasn't it Budweiser they were drinking? And I was like, oh, that bottle was cool.
Budweiser too. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that because with ET they wanted M&Ms, but they couldn't get M&Ms, so Reese's said yes, and now Reese's is iconic for being on ET. So.
And they're like the best too.
I love Reese's
so much better. Yeah.
My last name doesn't help, but my last name is Reese. So I've had the joke made all the time.
Do y'all have notes? Because I'm almost done with mine, Dahlia.
I have one. I wanted to bring up Ned because I thought he was just okay. Because I'm watching this, and I mentioned that I watch it with my kiddo, and she was like, "So, what is it? Is it like really cool thing to like touch women all the time when you don't have permission? And why does he get to say, "Oh, it's a prank," and he shoots that arrow past what's her face out on the archery thing, almost kills her. It's like, what the hell, dude? And then she's just like 2 seconds later, oh, that's just him. He's a jokester. I hate that character. He was like the first one I wanted to die. Even as a kid, it's like, what is up with the jokester who plays pranks and pretending to drown and shit?
And who wears Native American headdresses.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That moment of racism. And it was there for no reason.
That was so embarrassing. I was so embarrassed for him. I was like, what the?
Out of nowhere. He literally packed this just to do that. And I was like, you are going to camp for however many weeks you're going to be alive. And you need to like consolidate what you think you need. And you're like, let me put in this headdress so I can like do this prank. And it's not even a prank. It's just him being offensive. And then the cop played along.
And he has two because he has the full one. And then when he shoots the arrow, he's got the one feather.
He needed a racist costume change. And this was just what we did in the 80s.
Yeah. The chanting thing or whatever that is that he's doing, it was just like, it's too much. It's also because it's also random. So it's like maybe the character is supposed to be like that, oh, he's so random, it's funny, haha, let's make fun of things. And he like touched the one woman under the water, and I was like, he's like the child who, I mean, the man who grew up and made more children that say, oh, it's a prank, oh, get over it, and
boys only boys.
Hug please, I'm like, ooh, it was so skeezy, and I just no like for that. I was just like, I was rooting him number one killed.
If Mrs. Voorhees had let him live, he would own a company right now.
Yeah, and about his death, because we don't. That's another one. We don't see him actually die. We see him go into the cabin after, which I don't know why. I've never noticed this before, but right before, so he sees someone go in, and you can see her face. I was like, how did I not? Where have I been?
I didn't notice.
If you go back freeze frame it, and you just it's just little bitty like this much of her face as she turns in, and you can tell the back of the thing is like a woman's shirt because it's like pleated and like got the big shoulder pads.
Yeah, shoulder pads, right? Oh, I didn't think of that because I do remember seeing the shoulder pads, like because it was like.
I'm so shocked when it's Mrs. Voorhees.
Little glimpses.
Like,
yeah. And it was a complete surprise to my daughter to watching it. She was just like, so she's the killer. When did that happen? Like she felt like she missed something, and I'm like, no, because she just presented herself like when she comes out. Yeah. But I do still feel that when she came out of that Jeep and came up, I still get that same feeling because until she starts like going on and then talking and everything and being very dramatic, she's still creepy.
Her performance deserved awards.
Yeah.
Like honestly,
she's creepy and she shows up in a vehicle of a person we know is dead. My question is how is Mrs. Voorhees going back and forth this much in this 24-hour time span? Because she's like, oh, I should kill somebody in the woods now. Oh, I should kill somebody in the cabins now. And I'm like, madam, what was your original ride before you went and got his truck to come back here? Because what was it? Was it like a flying carpet? Like, was it
she has the truck that she picks what's her face up with. So she has a vehicle that she uses.
And she is making good time because like, what's her face? Can only get part way. And like this guy was like camped out having coffee because it's too far to drive. And Mrs. Voorhees is like, I'm not afraid of the rain. I have a plan tonight. I gotta get it done. Was she a stage manager? Because she was back and forth like nobody's business.
That's one of the favorite things. I think that like this began the whole. Remember when when she threw the body through the window? Oh my God, I love that. I thought it was like, can you imagine being scared and hiding, and you're like, oh, and then somebody throws a dead body through the window. It's like she's got this Herculean strength, and she's tossing bodies, and then she's hanging that one dude, and then she not only killed the dude who was fixing the generator, she hung him on the door and stabbed arrows through him to hold him onto the door. So since they didn't have like the effects, the budget to like show them getting killed, I like what they did. They were like, let's make them props. Sorry, Trent, what were you saying?
I was gonna say, you know where she's getting this from. She's been watching those Jane Fonda exercise videos, and she is getting it.
Her upper body strength is amazing for an older woman. Like, because like her kid was 20 years ago. And he was not a baby. He was like a teen. So this woman has to be like in her 50s at least. Yeah. And that's if we're not trying to do real math.
She's got to be in her 50s.
Yeah. Especially those shoulder pads
maybe
and
late
sweater,
40s,
which is my aesthetic. But like,
it's been 22 years since her son died, or since the other person was killed. So since she killed those two camp counselors, and I love that she went on hiatus for 22 years. That's also cool. I'd like to mention that. Sometimes.
Well, there was nobody to kill. There was nobody to kill there.
She said, I'm not going to come for you until you call for me. And they opened that camp back up, and she said, okay, you call for me. Here I am.
Like, she thought that was her farewell tour, and then they, like, tried her. She was like, I'm still salty about my son, so I'll be seeing you soon.
She should have been rusty, though. She should have been rusty, but I think she was using that
Jane
time to get creative. Squatting, lifting, getting physical, and then thinking of all the great ways to like, okay, so I'm not just going to kill him. I'm going to hang him on the door.
Well, we didn't see those guns under the sweater. She could have been working out that whole time, and under that sweater, she was hiding. And those weren't shoulder pads, man.
She takes her sweater off. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mrs. Voorhees is jacked. Like, she's just been like working out for 22 years, just like any day now, any day. Crunch, squat.
So as far as Mrs. Voorhees, I've always had a love-hate relationship with this story because I love it. I love the twist. I love that she's like this badass because I'm always, I cheer for the bad guy a lot. So, but the whole mental health aspect behind it. So, like I said, I'm going to say beforehand, I do love this movie. However, I have my moments where it's like, okay, every time especially during this era of horror movies, we still do it today too. It's that's the twist, that's the trope, that it's the mental health somehow comes into play to cause them. And I don't know, like I think this movie did it well. I hate to say that because it still bothers me, but I think it did it well, probably because it was in the beginning of doing this. I think it's like this for slasher films, but I feel it's lazy to have that mental health side of it, whether it's, you know, PTSD or the split personality or that type of thing. I personally think it's lazy writing. It's lazy. You can find something else. But like, again, having said that, I do think that they did this well, because I could step back a little bit and I could say, okay, here's Dahlia pretending that that's not what's going on. She's comforting herself. You know, she's not really crazy. She's comforting herself. She wants to be close to her son. She wants to, you know, her son's passed away, you know, and she wants to find a purpose. She's trying to find a purpose to keep going, because I won't even think about what it was like if I lost my children. You know, unfortunately, it's something as a parent I do think about, and I don't know how people do it, how people can keep going on. I have friends that have lost children, and I think they're the most amazingly strong people in the world to keep going. And so, as far as the character, the fact that she's still going, it was her only child. She's looking for something to keep living for. And this is how my narrative. She's looking for something to keep going. And so she is doing this for her son. And so she has formed a persona where she can keep talking to him and keep doing things for him, and he can keep talking to her. So that's how I tell myself to try to get past that whole hurdle of, like, again, with the mental health thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up, because it is lazy and it still happens today. Like, I was watching something very current a few weeks ago, and this is what they did. And I was like, why? Why can't we just have a mother be really fucking upset that her son was handled badly and died because of mismanagement and people not doing their jobs? That's more interesting than you trying to tie it back in and make it a mental illness thing when you've not researched it, you've not talked to any therapists, you haven't really studied DID, you're just using it as this thing that's spicy. And like, I need people to stop being spicy when it comes to mental health and other things, because they're like, we'll just do that, and it's haphazard. So many of the movies that I have actually shit on, because I try not to shit on movies on this podcast, even though some of them get to me a lot, but like, that's not what we're here for. We're here to critique it. And so I'm very much like, let it be if it's not offensive. But some of them are just like, let us throw in all of this spice at the end and it'll make this movie memorable. And it's like, how about you write a script that's worth being memorable? How about you just do that?
Especially when they throw it in at the end, like in My Bloody Valentine. They're like, oh, did you know that he was in a mental health care facility but that was it. That was his background. Like, that was the reason why. And it was just like, they could have just not put that in there.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, they could have skipped it and it's still been fine.
If I had $1 for every horror movie that used someone in an asylum as the person who did it, and that was the backstories that they were in an asylum, I would be able to sponsor both of our podcasts. Like, it's so fucking lazy, and it's so fucking done to death on top of being lazy. And nobody's like, should we stop? Should we try harder? They're like, no, he's in an asylum. It's spicy.
I think for me, what makes this film one that does it better than most is Betsy Palmer's performance, because she's not really playing crazy. You know what I mean? She's playing, I have a mission. My mission is to revenge the death of my son, and by doing that, I am keeping safe other children who could befall the same fate that befell him. So that to me is why. But I get, it's still.
No, you're right. You're right. That's why it works for me. That's why it's not for me like a trash movie that I will not watch again. It's because you believe it. It came from somewhere. It's continuing on, and and like you said, she has a mission, and so that's why like I said, it's still there, but it's more believable that this could be going on, and I can kind of separate a little bit from that. And I still enjoy this movie very much. The music, oh my God, the music in this movie,
beautiful,
that ending song when she's out on the lake, I still to this day, every time I'm on a lake somewhere, I love this so much.
That jump scare is so effective too, because you think everything's over. I mean, granted, especially if you didn't know that sequels were coming out. You know, if I was watching this in the theater when it came out, you think everything's over, she's safe, she's relaxed, and in the score, it's just very beautiful, and then it's like, oh my God.
And this movie's the reason why I always look at the ending for how are they going to continue. It's because of this ending. It's like, oh, what are they gonna do? I'm waiting for the extra little chunk at the end where it's like, no, they're not dead.
Right, which makes it so interesting because this was not in the original script. Like I said earlier, they didn't know how successful this film was going to be. And then after some test runs, they were like, oh, we could have something here. How do we continue this? What if Jason wasn't dead, or there was a boy in a lake? And then that's how they tacked that on at the end.
I think I have one final note on Miss Voorhees, because I think that we could just do like a whole We Love Mrs. Voorhees episode. I found a lot of inspiration for her character. I feel like Psycho. I kept thinking of the movie Psycho, and I thought that shock awe moment when it's like it's not him, it's not the mom there, it's been him the whole time. On this one, it like completely turned it, and then it was even more. At first, I was thinking maybe it's two people or something like that. Watching it when you're young, it's like, is it two people? I'm like confused, like who it is. But that shock and awe came to me the same way that the Psycho movie did with that. Oh man, it's just him in there, and seeing that it was just her. I was even still waiting for, is he there? Like, because I still felt like she was the whole time, like he was alive with her. And it was really strange to get to the end of the movie and be like, no, he isn't. You know, I thought maybe he was like the supernatural come back to life. I was expecting that to show up. So, it was kind of easy to put that and start doing it with sequels or whatever.
Go ahead.
I got another point. You go.
I don't. So you go.
Oh, I was just gonna. Apparently, if I don't spell it out, someone on our Twitter doesn't understand that I have issues. So I just want to spell this out very quickly while we're recording. That I do very much have an issue with this movie's lack of representation. It is an aggressively white hetero movie, and those should have never been a thing, and they're still a thing. And so I need to make sure I mention that every episode, so we don't have to have that conversation on Twitter every week. Thank you for reading.
Yes. Seconded.
Listen.
All in favor?
I feel like I just around my house, I just am like, I know I'm mostly talking to myself, but I'm glad that there's other people around to hear me repeatedly say the things. Yes, we know you don't like that, but I like saying it because I want everybody to understand. But with this one, look, my child watched this and she was like, why are all the women exactly the same?
They were.
And I'm like that's what started it.
Like,
they all talk like this because they're afraid to use their real voices, and nobody has a bra when you go to camp.
Did Kevin Bacon's girlfriend even have a personality? Like, the only thing I got from her is she was with Kevin Bacon, and then the other girl. Well, I don't know. I don't remember how she died. Oh no, she was in the bath. The other girl that died in the bathroom. I don't remember. Because there was a girl that went to go pee, and Kevin Bacon's girlfriend. They looked like the same. I don't know. I was like, these are the same girl, I think.
That was the same one. Yeah, no, she was Axe Face.
And that's the lazy writing there too, because the women characters didn't have any personality except for maybe the one that they're gonna let live at the end. They want to give a little backstory. Oh, I'm an artist. I draw.
Kind of boring.
She's the most boring.
Yeah, and it was like they added that little bit where she's an artist, but they didn't, expand on that at all. It was pointless. But all of them, that was really lazy writing back in the day. All of the women, they cast them just like what they look like, and then they're doing that the whole time, and it's just like no personality.
Yeah,
but that's the writing.
None of these women were a Sidney Prescott or a anyone from like anything 85 on, or Laurie Strode, or none of them. That's why you don't remember this girl's names.
Let's not say anything from 85 on, because we still got a bunch
of
dudes writing women, which is why I lose my voice yelling.
That's true. I'm thinking of the highlights.
The greatest hits.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of women who've never run before in these movies.
That's true.
Yeah. They're like, what are feet? Oh no. And I'm like, were you a mermaid until he came for you?
That's literally what I was thinking right now as you said that.
Yeah.
I wish I was a mermaid.
No. Then it would make sense. Like if he's hunting people in an aquarium, then I'm like, okay, you may fall. You can fall. I'll allow this. But like, no. Like she's walked cross country with all of her belongings in her bag, and the second she jumps out this car, she's like, "Oh no, I don't know how to stay upright."
I didn't even think of that. Maybe she needed the backpack on to keep her steady.
Let's think about this for a minute. Can you imagine how terrifying? Because again, remember, it's the 80s. We think especially the white person, we think everything is safe. We can do anything we want to do and go anywhere we want to go. And we get into as a female, we get into a car with Mrs. Voorhees, who is an older woman, and then she turns on. That's terrifying. Like, because you think you're so safe because you're with an older, warm woman, and she's the one that's going to kill you.
I don't trust older women. Yeah. My grandmother was a character and not for good reasons. So I suspect them first. I'm like, you're over 60. What did you do? And I watched them. I would never gotten in her car. I would have been I'm not okay with profiling, but if it's an older woman, I don't trust her. What?
I profile everyone because I trust no one. So
that's not a good thing.
You can get a sequel.
But looking at it from Trent's point of view, what he said, that time as a white woman who thinks that everything is safe, and you see this other white older woman, you would probably feel very comforted. You see her sweater. There's something about that sweater too. I mean, I think that was very intentional.
Yeah.
And I would feel very safe getting into the vehicle with her and be like, okay, I'm good now. Even my oldest is always talking about how, I love older white women. And I just think that's so hilarious. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, they make me feel very like, she always thinks of them as like a grandma or something. It's like, okay, whatever. But so I can see coming from that, from her place that, that was very comforting. That felt very safe. But I don't trust anybody.
She was even like perfectly fine getting in that car with a middle-aged white man. That's when I would be like, you need to stay there. I will stay over here.
I would not be a good hitchhiker.
By her butt. I wouldn't.
I would not be a good hitchhiker.
I can't talk to strangers.
Stranger danger worked on me, and you know what?
But you're still alive.
I am. Boom. I get a sequel. Any more points that we didn't get to?
Before we get to hot takes real quick.
Could I answer this question about the movies as a parent?
Yeah.
So for the most part, I have a hard time. I'll still watch them, but I have a hard time where a child, for obvious reasons, dies in a movie. It's, I think anybody does, obviously, but I am one of those people that relates a little too much to people in the movies. It doesn't matter what is going on. I'm going to find a way to relate to them. Like I said, that's why even with the Devil's Rejects, it's messed up, but I find a way to like be there somehow. But no, I think the most recent ones have been like, The Orphanage just broke my fucking heart.
Oh, it's so good.
It broke my heart. It was such a good movie, though, that I would watch it again because it's so well told. But that movie just tore me apart. Coco Di Coco Da, I liked that portion of what happened in that movie happened in the beginning and then continued on to the fucked up part of that story because I mean, it's part of the story. The little girl dies in the beginning of the movie, and that I was ready to break down, but they went on to the next act so that we can keep going on with the movie, that I was able to go on with it a little bit more. But it's when they do it so intimately and like that, it's just like it's really hard. But I like it when they can do it as a really good story rather than just a cheap, kill. I think they do it. In those two movies, I think did it really well. I mean, there's others, but off the top of my head, those two.
How do you feel about Pet Sematary?
Well, that's hokey enough for me that I'm good.
Tigers are not afraid.
Oh no, that is really rough for me. Kind of like City of God too, because of those that element with the kids having to, they really do have to live like that, grow up like that, and especially when I can see my own face in the crowd, there's something, about that as well. So it's, but again, those stories are so good, that I can watch them and I can, but yeah, those are such good movies.
Dalia sees every kid in the movies as a baby, and she will call them a baby.
They are all babies. They're all babies.
She's like, oh, the little baby angel. Oh, the little angel baby. And I'm like, stop calling every because then it makes it sad, and I'm trying to like separate myself from the character.
What I love about this conversation is Sharai is the exact opposite.
Yeah, I don't do kids. That's the scariest part of any movie is the kids. Like Children of the Corn, we've not touched it because it's too many children and they're in the corn. I don't need those nightmares. Are there any other points before we get to hot takes?
I'm good.
Like my only other loose thought, my stray thought is I like when Kevin Bacon does genre, but my favorite one, which I've not since I was a child, so disclaimers all over this because it probably did not age well, is Stir of Echoes. I liked it more than His Invisible Man, and it was a better time than this as a child. But again, I've not seen it since I was a kid, so I don't want people to be like, these problems, because I was like 8. So when I get there, I will find those problems. Yeah.
I haven't seen that one in a while.
I love it. I watched it.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Trent!
I might have it, just forgot
Stir of Echoes Party. Stir of Echoes Party. We're going to do that, which is a question that is not on this document that should be. We ask all of our guests who do a live with us, what is a movie you would like to cover with us when we have you back for an episode that's not live and stressful?
That's not live.
Okay. That's a hard one. Do people just sit here like for a really long time and think without saying a word? Because that's hard.
Well, why don't we'll come back to that after we do it. Let's do hot takes and then we'll come back, give you time to like go through the index. So anyone want to go first with their hot take?
You're looking for this movie or any hot take?
This movie for this one, but now I want to know.
This one, and it could include others if you needed it to, if you wanted to.
We'll open it up for the franchise.
Yeah.
Well, I think I kind of already talked about this a little bit, but I'm hearing myself again. I think that sex scenes are lazy as hell and lazy writing, and I'm no prude. Alma knows that. But I think they're really, really fucking lazy. And anytime I see it, it's like I see one in a movie, and the slashers are known for it, nudes and all that. And it's like, I honestly sometimes just want to turn it off and like not give it a second, watch, because like I said, I just think it's lazy. There could be that character development can happen another way. I've seen movies where they're trying to portray like, even if it's promiscuity, they do it differently. They don't have to show the people all, on top of each other and naked and all that. And again, I'm not a prude. It's just, it's annoying. It's like, could you not find another way to develop this character or develop this scene? So that's mine. I mean, I know it's part of the slasher genre. It's a makeup of it and everything. I rewatched the Friday the 13th, the 2009 one with Jared Padalecki, and that one was just like, it was all tits. I'm like,
That has my least favorite
Seriously?
line of a sex scene ever. That's
The
saying
way he
something.
talks to her
Something.
boobs, not even her, when he talks to her boobs, I was so uncomfortable.
When he
That's the
said
real
you
horror
have-
movie.
When he said you have perfect nipple placement, I was like,
Oh,
we're done.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
how did I forget that?
He
Yeah.
told
Oh
her
my
they
gosh.
were delectable or delicious or something, and I was like, oh, I had to pause and make another drink. I was like, I was not ready for this.
Oh,
But yeah, that's mine because, like I said, I mean, I just think it's lazy. You know, find another way to develop that character or whatever's going on. Because, like I said, I've seen it done, but yeah.
Alma, what about you?
Well, I think I touched upon it earlier with a Ned, because the character is in so many movies. It's like the prankster, the Joker, but that everybody has to take it lightly all the time, and that I find it so annoying and just like, why does it still happen in the movies? Like you know how it's fun to have all like the different tropes and stuff like that. A lot of them can be really, really fun. But when it came to Ned's character, the whole time it just kind of stuck under my skin. Something that sticks with me all the time because I'm just like, how is he funny? How is he fun? And why are the women written to just laugh off the thing that he's doing? Every in these movies, it's like the woman is just laughing off. Oh, it's like, you know, I'm like, it would have been fun to just throw somebody in there once in a while and who just says, that's not funny. You're stupid.
Yeah.
Just like one time, because that's just, I always remember him.
Yeah.
And that's why we need more films writing and directing horror
I was
movies.
just about to say that because I was going to say the reason why they're always in there, especially way back then, is because it was written, directed, produced, cinema shot
by three creepy dudes in a trench coat.
By 3 Chads in a trench coat.
3 Chads in a trench coat. Just like, hey, get naked for us. And that's why they all feel weird.
The one I will say, I think one of the films that comes to mind first that I think handles that archetype in a much better and less offensive way is Cabin in the Woods. Because the fool or the prankster in that is not offensive. He's not like touching women's tits or like whatever. He's just a stoner. Like, that makes him
you
funny.
are right.
Yeah.
That does it really well. Because you're right. The Joker doesn't always have to be a racist, sexist pig.
Yeah.
I like that
Offensive
Joker. Yeah.
To like everyone. He was offensive to everybody. And then he was like wanting to touch all the girls, but then he looked offended that at his best friend's girl.
Kevin
That's
Bacon
not
was
okay,
by him.
dude. They're in a relationship. Why are you trying to touch that? Like stop that. But in that one, it is true. You can have that character, but just better written, and then have everybody else react in an manner, like accordingly. Because to not have the women being written well is just it's just a disservice to like everybody. It's like no character development, no personality, no nothing. For
Actually, and I think that I think that and it's been a minute since I rewatched this one, but part 3 of this franchise has a character that does similar things, but the women react in the way that you're talking about, where they all hate him and they all ignore him, and then he dies because they all ignore him.
Yes, he was really, really annoying. Oh my gosh. But yeah, you're right. He did the arrow thing to kind of fool them, but they did get mad. That's true. Oh yeah, that was much better. They knew. They did better. Yeah.
Not that that's a much better film because it's the 3D one, but like
my hot take is what I always say, which is that we need more femme slashers. I would have much rather Mrs. Voorhees be the mystical murderer for the next 90 movies than for us to resurrect her son and age him and give him steroids, because that was a scrawny little boy that jumped into that river. And so for us to do all of that, we could have just like had her in her sweater popping up at this camp forever.
Yeah.
And I would have lived. But more femme slashers in general, in period, forever. It's more interesting because we're often overlooked and underwritten. And so nobody ever sees it coming. I think Mrs. Voorhees and What the Fuck are like the two that I am aware of having a femme who did it. And I know about WTF because we have a friend in it. It's not like it's something that like made it mainstream.
Right. Yeah, I agree. More femme killers. I think the sequel, which I've never watched it, so it could be terrible. But the sequel to American Psycho is a female killer, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
Mila Kunis, I think.
Okay, yes, but I remember reading about this because first of all, I've only seen clips of it. It looks truly horrible. Sorry to anybody who likes it. You know, everybody's got their thing. I watch and love horrible movies too. So, but it apparently this movie wasn't supposed to be a sequel to it, but they were writing off, like, I think it's maybe the same production company or something like that. So when American Psycho did so well, they decided to, throw on the 2 and then add in a story to make it connect to the first one. But the clips that I've seen of it, it just looks truly horrible, but you are correct. It is a female serial killer who's trying to emulate from the first movie and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
No. So don't watch it, but it is a female killer. Anyway, to answer the question earlier about Jason versus Freddy, I have not watched that movie in a very long time. I'm sure there is a stoner. I have not watched it specifically because of the treatment of Kelly Rowland's character and the fact that they made her say call Freddy the F word. I refuse to go back and watch it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen it. So sorry, God, I didn't know that happened.
It's an awful movie for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
At the end, like Freddy says something really derogatory towards Kelly Rowland, and then Kelly Rowland says, "Well, you're a fat."
How did I?
He said something about dark meat. In a movie where Kelly Rowland's between like a third unwanted child, even though it's Kelly Rowland who was Destiny's Child at the time.
That sounds
and they gave her that bad
horrible.
gig. Yeah, it was awful. It was just like, let's get all the racist, homophobic things here. And nobody will own it, even though like clearly there were writers and directors and editors. Nobody will own it. And so they're just like, we don't know.
That one was in the
2000s.
That was written in the 2000s.
As we have learned, the early aughts are sometimes worse than even the 90s.
Whoa, it's really, oh yeah, okay. Because I remember I saw it in the theater, never saw it again. But I couldn't remember, but I did when you mentioned that. I was like, oh my gosh, I just completely had like a horrible memory of that. Now I remember it.
Was awful.
Why was that the only thing we got out of it? Because that's the only thing they gave us. And that weird CGI worm. I do remember that strangely. Anyway.
Yeah.
So my hot take for Friday the 13th. While I'm not a huge fan of the franchise as a whole, this is one of my favorite classic slashers. Put it up there next to like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, like those are like some of my favorite classic slashers. But I'm not a huge fan of the franchise because it's very hit or miss after this.
I see that journey for you. I won't start this conversation because we're well over an hour, but I see that journey for you. There are some decent the franchise. Don't get me wrong. It definitely turned into a monster flick, and monster flicks can be fun and good. But as a whole, this is probably my least favorite franchise of like the main horror franchises.
There's so many, and so I think, like you said, it's very hit or miss. So the hits are just kind of with the misses, it brings down the franchise. So
yeah. Once you get to your 5th movie, you're not doing it for art. You're not. And that's a problem, Leprechaun in the Hood. But on that lovely note, we have been here well past what we asked of our guests and the people watching at home.
Yes. We can talk about this. We can talk with these two lovely guests forever. Thank you so much, Talia and Alma, for joining us on Friday the 13th.
Hey, I thought of the movie I would like to watch with you guys.
Yes.
Train to Busan. I think that would be so fun to watch with y'all. So many kills. So good.
I wish we had this conversation sooner in life. That's all I'm going to say about that.
But there's a sequel, which I have not watched. I don't know.
I watched the prequel and the sequel already.
I watched the sequel.
We'll get into
and
this
I won't
here.
agree with it because sometimes I'm like,
Yeah. No, I love Train to Busan though, and I'm gonna love the prequel when I get to that. But I saw the sequel.
Her face.
She wants to say something so bad.
I saw it. I did it because I was like, "Should we do that?" And I was like, "No."
Alma, do you have a film you would like to cover on the show?
No, but I don't have a movie. I just thought of a type of movie. I would like to do a vampire movie because we don't do them that often. I don't see a lot of people. I like vampire movies, and even if they're not the best or old or new or whatever, I just find them just to be a kind of like a different. There's not as many to me.
I love it. We've only done 2 on the show.
We need to do so many more. On Tubi, there's a movie called Bit, and I had a really good time.
I haven't seen it yet. Oh yeah,
do it. It's a good time. It's a good time. Yeah, like it's a girl gang of vampires. Yes. So I'm gonna say I won't say anything else because it ruins things and tells too much. But yes.
All right. So thank you so much to Dolly and Alma for sticking with us for almost an hour and a half.
We got chatty.
Right. You all are awesome. Thank you to everyone who watched and who will listen to this once we get this up on our podcast feed. And as always, make sure you stay fierce out there.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.